hyped up as those players probably are.
Jenna, that's how, before we get into it, I mean, that's kind of how he got his job. If people remember, Mike Tomlin, no one thought that was a Rooney Rule interview when they thought they were going to hire Ken Wisenhunt.
Yes.
That's who Ben Roethlisberger wanted them to hire. He was very young at the time, and they were like, all right, we're going to give the guy an interview. It'll be a good experience for him.
Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
And he went in there.
Yeah, they thought that he would follow in the line of Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith, Herm Edwards, played defensive back, coach defensive side of the ball. But they thought he was like a job away.
Right. And he went into the room
and won them over.
With speeches like these, impassioned, like hyped up, I'm a coach, but I'm also kind of a player. Like, I feel like I'm in the trenches with you. You love that kind of attitude, and you love that at the helm. Okay, so this is a big game with these two teams who really need, really want, really must have this win. CeCe, I'll start with you. Which team has the edge on Sunday?
It's really hard when you look at these teams, and I'm really trying to look. And when you have the video of Mike Tomlin that leads into the question, who has the edge? I give it to the guy who didn't say nothing, and that's Bill Belichick. And the reason why, they've matched up against Pittsburgh well. They figured out Pittsburgh defensively. Pittsburgh hadn't been able to get to Tom Brady, the reason why Tom Brady's been so successful. Now, I believe this could be a special Pittsburgh Steelers team. And all those teams, people talk about, well, all those guys didn't lose to New England. But a lot of the things that New England did against Pittsburgh, it transfers over, and we see that. Now, playing at home in Pittsburgh, man, that's a tough task in itself. But when you look at it, the X's and O's, you look at the coaches, you look at where the game is played, I'm going to tell you, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots have a very slight edge. Now, how do they take advantage of that? Tom Brady's got to keep his defense off the field. They have to be great on third down. They have to be tremendous in their special teams as far as field position. They got to punt and be able to put Pittsburgh in a situation where they have to go 80, 85 yards and try to methodically beat them that way. But from an edge standpoint, as we start looking at this matchup that's not going to be played until Sunday, I would say at the beginning, the early analysis in. Now, I need to talk to a few more researchers and everything like that.
What about your sources?
I got my source. My source is coming on Friday.
Okay.
But I would say right now, because of the success that Belichick and Brady have had against Pittsburgh in the head-to-head and also in Pittsburgh, I would give a slight edge to the Patriots as we start looking at this huge matchup.
All right.
Sometimes football is more simple than we give it credit for. The reason the Patriots have had this 15-plus year run of success at its core is because almost every game they've played, certainly in the last 10, they have had an edge at coach and an edge at quarterback. Like coach and quarterback, that's the two most important spots. The Pats have an edge on just about everybody in those spots. Against Pittsburgh, I would argue that coach-quarterback edge is the smallest compared to, I'd say, the second best coach-quarterback combo in the league behind Belichick and Brady is Tomlin and Big Ben. Maybe Sean Payton and Drew Brees would argue, but that's your list where you have top 5 quarterback, top 5 coach. So
I would say you'd have to put McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers in there because Aaron's so good.
Right.
You might not have the coach in the seat.
Aaron brings the grades up.
Yes.
Fair enough. But so that edge for the Pats is mitigated, at least somewhat, in this particular matchup. So then you look to the other 52 guys. And this is why I've been high on the Steelers all year. This is why, to answer the question, I think the Steelers have the edge. The Steelers have 3 wide receivers who would be the best wide receiver on the New England Patriots. Obviously, the Steelers have the best running back in the matchup. The Steelers have, I think, there are 2 different guys on the Steelers' defensive line who would be the best defensive linemen on the Patriots. The Steelers would have the 2 best offensive linemen. The talent edge for Pittsburgh, to me, is so drastic that if you can mitigate the coach and quarterback advantage and you add the home field advantage, and you know this for Pittsburgh, if they win this game, they are the 1 seed. If they win this game, they are only competing with Jacksonville for the 1 seed. After this, the Pats would be eliminated from it, and Pittsburgh would only have to win 1 more game when they have a game against Houston and Cleveland left. Like, this is what they're playing for. to have home field advantage, go through Heinz Field. And so I think the Steelers are the more talented team. I think they're the team playing better right now. I think they have a team whose quarterback is playing as well, if not better than Brady the last month. So I like the Steelers in this one.
A couple years ago, all the time this happens, a couple years ago I was asked if it was one game being played, you could put one quarterback out there, not how he's been playing. Who cares how he's been playing? Who cares what his past or his future would be? One guy to win one game. I always said Brett Favre. Maybe he doesn't play with consistency every play, but if you have a guy that's going to go out there and win a game for you, it's going to be Brett Favre. So when I look at these two teams, I still think, despite last week's loss, that the Patriots are the more consistent team. They are slow, they're methodical, they go out every week, they follow a game plan, not too high, not too low, and they do their thing, last week excluded. But if it's one game, one team, and it's two teams fighting head-to-head, I just think that the Steelers right now are the more explosive, exciting team. You talk about three wide receivers, that could be #1 for New England. New England just hired, when we're going to talk about it, signed a guy who got cut by the worst team in the league in Kenny Britt.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're looking at two very different teams right now who are actually playing similar, but one, yes, has that slow and methodical consistency. The other one right now just feels a little more methodical, a little more explosive. What do you think about that?
All those things are very, very accurate. But in those 60 minutes, in those white lines, I remember Super Bowl 51, breaking that game down, position by position. Atlanta had a couple receivers that would have been the best receiver
That's
on.
That's a good point.
Pittsburgh.
Atlanta had a couple running backs that could be stars on New England.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I haven't heard this before, but it speaks to New England's got to be more consistent because they are less talented. But their system has proved out to be tried and true. I mean, they were on pace for an NFL record road victories consecutive streak. You don't do that unless you're really talented. This is one thing that the players in New England, they're less talented than Pittsburgh and some other teams. But the players in New England get upset because they never get credit for having good football players. You know who always gets credit? Tom and the coach. You never talk about, the defensive secondary, which has improved since the beginning of the season. Now, they don't have great linebackers. They don't have great rush people, but they have a system. Their special teams is second to none. It will play a role in this game. So those are the things that I like to depend on. Yes, this season it tells one story, but when you've been as dominant as New England has been over Pittsburgh, over Ben Roethlisberger, those are the things that I would like to rest, to believe that they're more predictable to happen again this Sunday.
One other note, one thing, CC, that you pay more attention to than I think just about anybody who does what we do is the weather and the injury report. People, we acknowledge the weather, we acknowledge the injury report. You drill down on that.
Yes.
And talk about the importance of it. And we saw, by the way,
I know it affects play calling. I know it affects the skilled guys. I know how it affected me. Jenna, you'll appreciate this. The less body fat you have, the colder you get. Just like you in the studio.
I'm always
Oh, because you got definitely the lowest body fat on the show. Easily.
Bless you.
I mean,
Bless
that's,
you.
but so when you get to the skilled guys, yeah, big guys, they love the cold weather. Not the skilled guys, and the ball's harder to hold on to. It has a little film coating on it. So the weather, yes, it plays a factor in playing football.
And we saw Monday night the way the injury report played a factor. Marcus Cannon was out. The Patriots, we talked about how we don't make excuses for them the way we do the Cowboys. Well, listen, the Patriots could have used Marcus Cannon. They could have used Kyle Van Noy. They could have used Trey Flowers. The Steelers, on the other hand, Joe Hayden's back at practice. That secondary's been two totally different secondaries, with Joe Hayden, without Joe Hayden. Now, we all know they don't have Ryan Shazier. But aside from that, and that's a big but, I totally understand that, this is one of the healthier teams in the league right now. This time of year, it's not always about who's the best team in the league. Once you get to game 15, game 16, it's very often about who's the best team that's healthy. Who's the best team that has not been ravaged by injuries. And so I think right now, especially if Hayden's able to come back, the Steelers have an edge in the health factor as well.
One player we should mention, he's been in the headlines, Mike Mitchell, the safety for Pittsburgh. They need to play a physical style. They also have to guard Gronk. I believe that he will play a huge role in how the game plays out. just his role inside the box against Gronk and the physicality, I believe it will be part of the storyline.
And you mentioned Gronk. Gronk is back from his one-game suspension, so the Patriots